Hey everybody, this is Eve. Thanks for tuning in to my YouTube channel. This channel is dedicated to exploring various topics of the metaphysics, looking at it from a very occult standpoint. I just want to do my video to try to kind of close out some things, try to close out the Orishas involving the love triangle of Prince William and Catherine and Meghan Markle, okay? So they are taking me through it, honey. And so I feel like I'm being ripped apart. It's very interesting because, a few videos back, I talked about how I was channeling for Meghan and William and Catherine and how, what is it? I was closing out their channel. You know what I mean? They had not showed up. And so, I was channeling for Catherine and William's son. And, I was promising him that I would do his channel, and life circumstances was happening where I couldn't do it at the time. And so once I found some stability and some grounding, then I tried to get the channel out, which I did, at least most of it. But the Orishas of William and Catherine and Meghan showed up again. And so I was like, okay, well, what's going on? Because I thought that, I had given them all the information that was needed for them to, be able to make sound decisions going forward about, their waking conscious state, but I don't really know because, in working with the prince, with the little prince, I had to conjure up, Meghan Markle's demons to kind of help out with what was going on. And so, sometimes you have to, make a deal with the devil or her Orishas, which is a very chaotic energy. Okay, Meghan Markle is a very, very old soul. In fact, she's the elder of the British royal family, so she's the real royal. Okay, her soul existed before all of them. Okay, so it's very ironic in this, I guess what you would say, space and time, that she's considered to be one of the very least when she is the elder. Okay, so I conjured up a lot of her chaotic energy in order for me to channel for the prince and to be able to, to get his channels out. And I thought that she, being his paternal aunt, that she would be a great asset in helping him find stability within the institution, especially since she's gone through and she's going through a similar situation. Well, in doing so, Catherine and William have showed up, and Catherine has attacked me several times on the astral plane. I don't know what the fuck is wrong. I'm like, listen, honey, that's your man, and hey, I do have Lilith and Libra, so I do have the potential to break up marriages and so forth. But, really, although my Lilith and Libra is very potent, I'm really truly trying to use it to dismantle things so they can actually be in a place to be able to, stick together and help one another to realize the soul in this incarnation. Okay? What should I say? It's so much, and I'm really spent. But anyway, the main focus here at this point is William. Okay, so William has a lot of emotional problems from his last lifetime, where Meghan Markle was his wife at that time, and so she committed suicide. And so it's not like their relationship ended because of the fact that, we didn't like each other, so and so cheated or something like that. No, he lost his wife, and so there's a lot of grief there, and especially the circumstances of her death. So he brought that into this life, and I feel that he and Catherine, who were friends in that lifetime, formed some type of traumatic, trauma bond or what have you. And so that, results in a relationship in this lifetime. You see what I'm saying? And so I feel like the fact that Meghan Markle is back on the scene really kind of intimidated Catherine, because of the fact that, subconsciously, not consciously, she knows that that's his wife. And as you can see, Prince William's mannerisms, you can see how he acts around her. And so he doesn't know that that's his wife mentally, but emotionally, in his heart, he does. Okay. So I feel like, with the level of transference that I'm receiving from these souls or whatnot, a lot of the stuff that the feelings for Meghan Markle have been transferred onto me. I'm not sure because, I don't know, but in the metaphysical, the metaphysician, the practitioner. So sometimes that happens when, you're conducting channels you know, it doesn't happen often. There's really only one other soul where this has happened to me, and that's Master Yeshua, where he counter transfers, and he does it quite a bit. So I've learned how to work with his energies. But to see William's energies kind of surprised me, because he has this huge discrepancy between his anima and the shadow of his subconscious. Okay, so the thing is that William's anima, right, is Meghan Markle, right? It's a conglomeration of Meghan Markle and his mother, Princess Diana, who are very nurturing, empathic, you know, egos, okay? Now, listen, Meghan Markle is evil in the subconscious, but her ego is very empathic and kind and sweet, okay? And so there's an aspect of William's personality that is like that, like his mom, like Meghan Markle. In fact, in the interview, the engagement interview that Harry had with Meghan, he said, my mom would have been best friends with Meghan. You see what I'm saying? So they're very similar. So the fact that that was his wife in the past incarnation, and that she's very similar to his mom, there's a major attraction to her, okay? So this is why he's attracted, because he's really subconsciously attracted to himself, okay? So yeah, so that's that. However, because of the fact that he's in a family, well, he already has dispositions to actually not honor the emotions, okay? So he has a Gemini moon. So when you have a Gemini moon, you rationalize the emotions. You know, you think to yourself, oh, I can be emotional because it's birthday time, or because it's my anniversary, or, you know, I'm emotional and I feel a certain way because this is my wife, or these are my children, or this is my mom, my dad, what have you. So he has a problem in terms of rationalizing the not letting the emotions flow, but rationalizing them, okay? So in doing this, right, and doing this is bottled up the emotions in the subconscious because they're not flowing. And so whenever you're doing that, the ego can't withstand that. The ego can only withstand that for so long without twisting things and distorting things. And so he has a shadow personality that actually lies right beneath the his consciousness, okay? And so, you know, this shadow person can only be accessed in deep meditation or hypnosis. And so he will be up against that upon death, okay? And so he won't want to integrate it because he doesn't have any, it's alien, you know what I mean? Like, it's really, really, truly alien to him. And so he's not in tune with it. And one of the reasons why he's not in tune with this shadow personality is because he's a public figure. So as a public figure, you can't walk around as some type of crazy psychopath or whatnot, you know, killing people because of the fact that, you know, you are, you know, the prince, you know, you are next in line to the throne or what have you for the British royal family. So of course, you know, you can't be a psychopath. But whenever you are depriving the ego of its emotional state, then it has to go somewhere. And so it's diverted to the subconscious. And so the institution itself actually created this shadow personality. I know. If he were not within that environment, he would not be a psychopath in the subconscious. So the thing is that Meghan Markle, I feel, is back in the fold, and I feel like she's back in the fold from a subconscious, more spiritual point of view to kind of get him out of this, okay? So she's the twin, she's his wife, okay? And so I feel like connection with her can definitely reestablish his emotional body to where he can realize it through the ego and actually let out some of the intense emotional trauma that has resulted in this psychopathic shadow, okay? And so this is what Meghan Markle was battling with when it came to William. You know what I mean? Like, he would go back and forth. Like, I see, like, in his, like, private time, he would be more in his anima with his mom and the nurturing aspect, you know, and the nice feelings, you know, for Meghan Markle and the warm feelings for her. But around her, the shadow would come about because the shadow knows that, you know, it can't reconcile its emotional body, so it had to find a twisted way to deal with her, and that's to be, you know, absolutely like dismissive and cold and distant, you know, aloof, you know, just to not really, you know, to, I guess his way of dealing with her is like not to deal with her per se, you know, it's like, oh, I have to deal with her. So that's more the shadow personality, okay? But if he were able to embrace Meghan Markle, the shadow would dissipate. But that's not okay when it comes to the British royal family, okay? And, especially the media, and it's like, oh, you have you have the hots for your brother's wife or whatnot, but everybody's like living karmically and living in the dark. You see what I'm saying? But you can see, the way that he interacts with her, that something's wrong. You see what I'm saying? It doesn't make any, logical, rational sense in terms of, why he's acting this way around Meghan Markle. But yeah, that's his wife. So, when he leaves the earth plane, unlike, Master Yeshua, because like I said, Master Yeshua is like, the only soul I worked with where I had a tremendous amount of countertransference. But like I said before, Master Yeshua, his shadow and his anima pretty much, have this continuity to it, have this consistency. Whereas with William, his anima looks totally opposite to what his shadow is. So you can say the anima, like I said, is Meghan Markle and Princess Diana, whereas the shadow is like the psychopathic, more associated with the paternal aspect of himself, because in the British royal family, they're not very, feeling people. You know what I mean? Like I've been doing some research as well, just kind of figure out what the fuck, you know what I mean? But I've looked at clips and stuff like that from, different depictions of the British royal family, and how, Princess Diana would, go to hug the Queen or something like that, and it's like, oh, we don't do that. It's kind of like, it's not a very feeling situation, okay? So he has a major discrepancy. So this looks like a lot of Christ energy or sacrificing energy, where you've got, the anima going this way, and then you have the subconscious, shadow going this way. And so they cancel each other out. So you're in for a rude awakening, I should say. And so I feel like the solution is to give a lot of penance in this lifetime, to pay a price. It would pay, you would pay a hefty price for, marrying your brother's wife, and she leaving Harry, whatever the case is, and and leaving Catherine with the kids or whatever. That would just be a total upheaval. You know what I mean? And for your reputation, like your reputation would be like shot to hell. You know what I mean? And so you truly be walking out of what the territory, the terrain that you were going into, some type of other territory that would get you judged by this world. You see what I'm saying? But I feel like, and I know that he's likely not going to do that, but it's necessary in terms of him and his spiritual growth, because he's going to have a horrible death if he does not integrate this aspect of his personality. You see what I'm saying? The world is there to kill you, take like Elon Musk. Like, people are like, oh, Elon Musk, he reached like $1 trillion or whatever. I think, I'm not sure if he's still there, but he reached $1 trillion, and the world's like, wow, that's wonderful. No, he's going to be poor in his next lifetime, because the way that consciousness works is always trying to balance itself. So if you have a major imbalance in this lifetime, right, we have unlimited funds and so forth, and unlimited connections and things, the ego is going to want a limitation to balance that out. If you continuously go on, incarnations, or have incarnations like that, you're going to reach a place of stasis where it destroys, okay? It destroys the soul. So it's better to be balanced. You see what I'm saying? And very few people can be balanced within their incarnation. And so, I tell people that what they praise you for here is what they hate you for there. So I feel like with William, he should get closer to Meghan Markle, do a lot of meditation, try to spend some time alone, try to kind of limit his, his public, engagements, whatever the case is, to really get in tune with himself, to meditate on a lot of the things I've said, and to really know that his life is at stake. You know what I mean? It's kind of like when you're not letting the emotions flow, it can have blockages in the body, and you're trying to stifle and put like a top on these emotions, and you think that that's a coping mechanism that's going to eventually fail. You see what I'm saying? It's like, somebody pouring like some water into a container, or whatever the case is. You keep pouring water into the container, and the container is like, listen, I have enough water in here. I don't have any more room for any more water in here, but you're still pouring water in there, right, and putting a cap on that container. And so it's going to come out in a very debased type of way if you don't let some of that water out. And so the world wants you to die. You see what I'm saying? The world wants you to be crucified. You know, that's why our world looks like this. You know, I mean, think of it. Like, people are like, oh, be good and do this, that, and the other. Well, Christ is not just good. Christ is bad as well. You see what I'm saying? It's like nature. Like, you know, if we have a tornado or a hurricane, nobody on the news says, oh my gosh, that tornado and that hurricane was so evil toward those people. You know, it killed those people and we hate the hurricane and the tornado. No one ever says that. You see what I'm saying? So, same thing when it comes to the nature of human beings. You can't really hate the nature of a human being if you are not there to destroy that human being. So I'm not here to destroy William. I'm here to help him. I'm here to say that, you know, really literally, I shouldn't say literally, but in a figurative way, he is a hurricane. He is a tornado. And if you're not going to judge a tornado or a hurricane, then you don't need to be judging him, because this is his nature that's been bottled up and bottled up and bottled up and bottled up. And when you're not letting the emotions flow, especially given his past life karma, then you're literally making him sick. That's what you're doing. From a spiritual Christ standpoint, so people who talk about, oh, Christ and we love Jesus, you don't give a flying fuck about Christ. You don't give a flying fuck about Jesus. That's why your institutions in Rome are fucking little boys and shit like that, right? Because you don't let the emotions and you don't let things flow. It's perverted. Your system is broken. Everyone knows it. You see what I'm saying? So, you know, this person can't really take this anymore. I can't take it anymore. You know, subconsciously he's in peril. You know what I mean? And so he's called upon a medium to actually communicate these things or what have you, so he can actually embrace his nature. And his nature is not to be a part of your institutions, to be good and just like totally, you know, not exercise his will and his desire. His wife committed suicide. In this lifetime, if someone's wife commits suicide, you would not blame them for saying, oh, you know, it's bad that you want to be with your wife. Well, his wife is here now, and he wants to be with his wife. But here you have everyone saying that that's a bad thing, you shouldn't do it. And when he gets into his, you know, when he dies, then he will meet the subconscious aspect of himself and trauma that he's taking from his other lifetimes, and he will be crucified. Or do you just like the suffering? Do you like to see people suffer? If you do, then you should admit that to his face, actually. If I want to see someone suffer, I can admit it to your fucking face. I don't give a flying fuck. You see what I'm saying? But see, I'm a naked one. I'm an Egyptian, you see? See, I can participate in any type of debauchery in front of the Pope himself and not really give a flying fuck about it. Because I know how fucking dirty you look like in the subconscious. I know how dirty you look when you leave this fucking world. And you think that you're going to get away with it? Nature will not let you get away with it. You think that you won't be judged? You will be judged. So it's best, you know, I feel like with information that, you know, I'm getting from William's subconscious or what have you, from his astral body, that if he does decide to give penance, that he takes his stripes in stride, as opposed to, oh, you know, like suffering without any knowledge. Like, you know, in the books of the Bible, it talks about how Jesus, you know, was suffering. But in one book, you know, he dies mentally, physically, and emotionally, saying, Father, why hast thou forsaken me? You see what I'm saying? So, you know, you don't want the ego to die in ignorance, not knowing why it's taking its penance and so forth, and feeling like it's nasty and evil and disgusting, when really it's a part of a nasty, evil, and disgusting system in a disgusting, perverted world. Past lives exist, right? If you have a talent is something that you learn in this current lifetime, you learned it. If you have a gift, it cannot be explained. It's irrational. How do you know how to do certain things that other people don't? It's because you're bringing that from other lifetimes, honey. That's why it's a gift. So, you know, people are really sick. They're really sad. And I really, truly feel bad for him. I feel bad that he's a part of a system where they have poisoned his soul, destroyed his emotions, making sure that he has an anima that's super duper loving and passionate. When I say passionate, he's fucking passionate. Like when I'm dealing with William's astral body, There's so much passion, I can't deal with it. Like, I come out of my meditation sobbing, crying. I'm like, what the fuck is this? You see what I'm saying? Like, taking on his emotional debris, I'm sobbing, I'm crying. I'm like, what is that? He has to let some of that shit out. And if you're not allowing that, listen, Catherine, if this is my husband, I really truly listen, if you really truly love your husband, you would tell him to go and take care of his business with Meghan Markle, because it's his soul that's at stake. See, we need to really talk about love and what love is. See, people don't really love people. You know what I mean? You love what someone can do for you. You love yourself and what you want. When you truly love someone, right? It's not totally selfless, but at the same time, you want what's best for that person so they can be good to you. Okay? So, I feel like, you know, knowing the information that's coming from his soul or whatnot, and how he's grieving something that happened in the past, and how this institution has destroyed his emotions and created an anima that's super duper empathic and passionate, and he cannot express that because of the situation that he's in. If you truly love your husband, you let him be reconciled to his wife. You will. So, but we don't really truly have love. And that's why this world is here to destroy you. It's here to kill you. Really, in the end, nobody really gives a fuck about you here, except for Christ. Okay? So, I think that's pretty much, you know, what I want to say for now or whatnot. You know, I feel like these souls or whatnot, you know, they reincarnated fairly quickly. And they had traumas from past lives that, you know, because typically a soul, when it dies traumatically, or say, you know, it experienced some type of trauma toward the end of the life, it will stay upon the astral plane to kind of dissipate that karma before reincarnating. But it looks like they reincarnated very quickly. And I believe so because they wanted to keep their tendencies in hopes that they would reconnect to one another, but knowing that their reconnection was going to be fucked up because they wouldn't remember, because your mind is always wiped when you come back here. So, but the tendencies are there. So they knew that they would be drawn back to one another. You see what I'm saying? It's like, you know, we're all energy beings, right? We carry an electromagnetic field. That's why if you flatline at the hospital, they shock you back to life with electricity. So whenever somebody dies tragically, or like, you know, they're young or something like that, the electromagnetic field is very robust. You see what I'm saying? So it'll stick around on the astral plane until it kind of like dissipates or whatnot before it reincarnates. But this is very interesting. I feel like the reason why it has a lot of emotional debris and stuff like that is because I'm getting from the channels is because the electromagnetic field was very robust when they actually passed away. Okay? So the tendencies are there, you know, but typically when people meet twin flames or, you know, soulmates or whatnot, they have had lifetimes to kind of like have a separation between that person. So there aren't the inclination toward that person isn't as intense. You know, like say like Master Yeshua and his mother were lovers in another lifetime, right? But they've had countless lifetimes between that time where now that's his mom, but in another lifetime that was his lover. But yeah, if he had reincarnated like right away, oh yeah, I mean, him and his mom probably have an incestuous relationship because of the fact that has not been worked out. Okay, so it has to be, you know, it has to be worked out a little bit before you can meet these people, so your relationships are not as karmic. You see what I'm saying? So you don't want to like fuck your mom in your last incarnation, and then she's your mom here in this incarnation, and then you have these feelings. No, it has to be dissipated. But the emotions with these people have not been dissipated. Okay, they're still yearning to complete something that happened in their last lifetime, and they have no mental recollection, but they do have a heart connection. And, you know, I think it's very interesting. I would say that, you know, William and Catherine should think about the first time that they met Meghan Markle and the feelings that they had, you know, because they shake hands with a lot of people. They're celebrities, whatever, as well as Meghan. But I feel like, you know, because Meghan has reached perdition, you know, looking at William and Catherine, they still have this connection, but I feel like they had some type of like feeling connection towards Meghan Markle that they could really explain. You know what I mean? They couldn't explain. They're like, okay, what is this? You know, and so they're very rational. So they didn't really know what to how to take it. Okay, so I feel like they just reincarnated very quickly to be back together with one another, and they don't know why. And so it's important for them to stick together, to be able to to remember together, and to bang out these emotions, and complete whatever they started from the last lifetime, so they can experience wholeness, and and they can feel good mentally, emotionally, and yes, even physically. Okay, because when you're not doing well emotionally, it will, like I said, things will happen in the body, and you have blockages in the body where it affects your health. So the metaphysical creates the physical, and so they don't need to be, I feel like, I'm not saying that they should like sing kumbaya and shit like that, but I feel like they owe it to themselves in order to close this chapter, in their spiritual evolution. So these things are not constantly happening karmically, okay? And these constant hurtful imprints upon the soul, because I feel like they're hurtful imprints upon their souls, and they don't really know why. You know what I mean? They're in some type of spiral of bullshit, you see? So I think that's pretty much all I want to talk about right now. Like I said, I'm very much emotionally spent, and trying to kind of get myself together and feel my own emotions, you know what I mean? And not trying to, I'm trying to get my own man, Catherine. I don't have time for you and William, or whatever the case is. He's not Will.I.am, he's William. So I say to myself, like, hey, I got my own man, trying to figure out what Jacob doing. His astral hoes always like attacking me. I don't have time for you, or whatever the case is. That's Megan's man. I can't fuck with her. She the queen bee. And so as a result, I don't really have time for y'all, some of y'all dramas. Y'all got a lot of drama in this shit. You know what I mean? Like, and they really don't know how deep it goes. I feel like Catherine and William had this bond because of the tragedy that happened. And so this is why Catherine was so led to William in this lifetime, to work out that trauma bond that they had in the last incarnation. But that likely would not have happened if the tragedy had not happened, And so their relationship is karmic. They're not making conscious decisions to be together. It so happens that they're together because of this energy that has not been worked out. And so whenever that's happening, it's bound to fail, or you're bound to have problems and stuff like that. So, we're made to be in this world to make conscious decisions. But if circumstances were different and you may not be with that person, you're not making a conscious decision. Okay? So I don't know. I think that's it or whatever, but maybe I'll do a part 2 or whatever to this, but I'm fucking tired. So I will see you in my next video.